If you've ever wondered why a friendship changed or ended after one thing happened and you couldn't quite explain what it was, and for years you kept trying to understand it or even get closure, watch this video. Yes, sometimes it's something controversial, something political. Someone posts something, another person responds, and the friendship never quite gets back to what it used to be. It's real and it happens. And it's happening more now than ever before. Don't ask me why. But that's really just one version of something really bigger that I have noticed when as I work with women and even being a woman myself in midlife. Most friendships that shift after something major has happened, or even not major, after something has happened, they aren't really about that thing, that's something that we say. What I've come to see and realize and even experience for myself is that the event, the thing that happened, just made the underlying thing or the shift, or what caused the shift, much more visible. You know, that thing was likely underneath your friendship or your relationship the entire time. And I see it constantly, like I said, with the women I work with, high achieving women in midlife, women who put their careers, who put a lot of attention or who spend a lot of time, I should say, growing their careers, who have achieved a lot, who own homes, who travel, you know what I mean? All that good stuff. They have lives that would impress and should impress anyone, right? Their friendships are some of the first places that this shift shows up, right? So when that thing happens, the first place that it typically happens is in the friendships that you have. And you're usually the last one to be able to really identify it. And that's why sometimes you spend months, years, even just thinking about what happened, why. You're like trying to find out, figure out, reconcile yourself with it. So I want to share three things that usually are happening, but that you do not see or even know, right? The first thing is that it could be a difference, honestly, it could be as straightforward as a difference in values, right? Values that were never tested before until that shift happened. Because I know this, you can be close to someone for a very long time. You can have childhood friendships, friendships from elementary school, middle school, high school, 30, 45, 40-year-old friendships without really knowing a person, without really finding out how differently you and that person see the world, because nothing came up for that difference to show up, right? Nothing forced the the question. And the friendship was essentially created on shared history, which isn't bad, not judging, just sharing, and not shared beliefs. So when that thing happens, a vote, a decision, when you have to take a stance, and the stance of that person who was your friend or who you thought was your friend, when that person takes that stance, it's like, I'm surprised, I thought I knew you. You know what I mean? You knew them but you didn't know them, because the relationship wasn't tested in this way, or wasn't forced, didn't force your hands in this way or their hand. And so you find out, right? So a friendship isn't ending over the event. This is what I want you to know. It's showing you what it was built on, the foundation it was. And the first thing that can likely happen to shift it is that your difference in values is brought to the surface. And this one really hits hard. It resonates with a lot of women, because I know that my friendships, for example, go way back. I have friends from when I was 5, and I'm 54 right now. I have friends from elementary school, primary school, we call it, secondary school, high school. In fact, I have less now than I did before. So it's a bit of a, I don't want to say heartbreak, but it does cause, a lot of hurt, you know. We have friends from college, early career, years before either of you got into relationships, got married, had children, created these marvelous lives. And so you assume that history means alignment. You assume that proximity is closeness because you've known this person for so many years. What don't I know about this person? Ha! What don't you know? Or what do you know? You know, it doesn't. It just means that you've known each other for a long time. That's all it is, right? So the second thing is comparison. Comparison, comparison, comparison. That was there all the while. But again, like the first example I gave, or the first point I gave, it never really became a thing until this shift happened. So it was there in very subtle ways until what happened happened. And then it's like, boom, it opens it up. You know, maybe your life moved in a different direction and hers didn't. Or maybe hers moved in a different direction and yours stayed consistent. You know, neither of you said anything, neither of you acknowledged it, at least openly, but it was there, because it may have felt petty or unkind, or it may have shifted things, but it was there, it happened. And so it just lingered, it just festered. And then when this thing happens, something seemingly unrelated, boom, the friendship shifts. And the way it shifts seems way, 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 way too big. I'm trying to really get into it because it's true. And you're wondering, what happened? What happened? This little thing? Huh. And that's usually the telltale sign, when the reaction seems to be bigger than the event. That's a telltale sign that it wasn't really about the event. The event is what exposed it. The event just released what had been percolating or stewing underneath all of it. It had really been building up for years and years and years. So I want to be honest about this one because it's the one people skip a lot. Because, I don't know, they skip it a lot. They just move on to look for other things, It's envy, in essence. Envy between women who love each other is still envy. And I think this is why you skip it, because you love this woman. You've done a lot. She's done a lot. But it's still envy. And so we want to acknowledge it for what it is. We don't necessarily need it to do anything for us, but it's important that you say it. Two things can be possible. You can love this person, care for this person, and still have envy. Or vice versa. The person can love you, care for you, and still have some envy. It doesn't need to be this ugly, crazy, contentious, evil, witchy situation, You just have to be real. Just have to acknowledge it. And it doesn't go away also too because you're both successful. You can both be equally successful and envy still exists. And I think this is why it is really one of the most challenging ones to acknowledge, to accept, maybe to even notice, because neither of you needs to be really broken down or falling apart for it to exist. Both can still be highly successful, and yet this can still be a thing. So that when the event happens, it's like, what happened? We both have homes, we both do this, all that stuff, but it still happened, And you feel like because you're grown, because you're both past it can't happen. It's somewhere and it's just been waiting for an opening to come out. This one is one that's also I've experienced all, because everything I share I've experienced to some extent, for the most part, right? This one I'll just share a little bit of what happened. It was, we both had the same pair of glasses, nice designer glasses. This is years and years ago. And I was visiting. For some reason, I was wearing my glasses, so I didn't have the case. But when I was leaving, I just thought her case was on the table, and I thought it was mine, and I took the case. And honestly, I kid you not, that was the end of the friendship. Later, I found out a lot, and envy, comparison was, but the same glasses, same nice designer. So there was no, you had more than I had, at least as far as that was concerned. And I wonder too, of course, later you have language as you get older, you know what's happening. But at the time, I was like, I even returned it, or I think I attempted to return it. It's a case. How is that able to ruin a friendship or destroy a friendship? Remember, I said when the reaction is greater times 100, it's like almost irrational when you compare to the event. That's a sign that that's what's going on. So, the third point, the third reason is that it shows up, it shows you who's actually invested in you, the person, the human, and who was not just present in your life. This one is big. Listen to me. Maybe not as common as envy or comparison, but equally big. Some friendships continue or even are established, created, start as a result of convenience, and they continue in the same way, you know. And what does that look like? That could be you're at the same stage of life, you're just getting married, or you're just graduating, or you're just starting in university together, or you just started this job together, you just bought your homes together. So same stage of life, right? Around the same age, starting children, going pregnant at the same time, all that. Same group socially, you're both seeing each other at the same clubs and recreational whatever, you know what I mean? Same city, same neighborhood, neighbors, same stage of life. And I'm not taking away from it. It's a real bond. It really is. It's not fake. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it wasn't real. But when friendships are created or formed out of convenience, they don't almost they don't always end up in investment, right? As long as the convenience is there, as long as the same stages of life are carrying you, you continue, the bond is there, but the bond is formed on convenience. And I've shared what the convenience could look like. It's not really formed from the investment. And what do I mean? Let's say you shift, things shift. One person gets divorced. You're no longer at the same stage of life where you're 30 years in a marriage, 20 years in a marriage. One is single again. There's no investment. The investment was that you were both married, similar circumstances, you know? Or you lose your job, or you leave that job, or you move to another city. You have to travel another country. You know what I mean? The convenience is no longer there. And what it does is it exposes the lack of investment that you had in each other, you know? Because that relationship was carried along, was maintained because it was convenient. Even as things shifted for you, it shifted for her. Even as you know, it could even be that you both got divorced or you both got married. You both, you know what I mean? Your children both, you know. So as long as that convenience is there, it just moves it along, keeps that bond going. Once it shifts on either end in some way, shape, or form, it exposes the lack of investment in each other, you know. And when that happens, you find out really, really fast that, now that you're no longer within my proximity, now that I have to go out of my way, now that it requires you to do something different, to show up differently, to be present, to whatever it is the ask is different from when it just was easy and convenient, you know. So what it looks like is that, I remember I said you find out fast. How do you find out fast? Some people just step away quietly, subtly. You just notice that they're not calling anymore, you're not talking anymore, you're not texting like before, or it gets less, or they just like slowly fade away. They ghost you. It could be over time, it could be quickly. Know that the ones who step back were doing it because they didn't want to choose you, because it also creates an opportunity to shift the type of friendship into one of investment, where convenience has fallen apart and is no longer the case. If you've been with this person, you can shift and change the relationship, and it can now move into that investment realm. But if they choose not to do so and they fall back, it means that they don't want to choose you. Now that it's no longer convenient for me, I don't care that much, I'm not that invested in you to bring more to the table, to do more, to keep this going, you know. And it's okay. It's okay. You will not die. You will live and you will thrive. Trust me. It will even open the door for people of like minds to come, like values, and who like you for you, who always had to go out of their way anyway. So it doesn't matter, because it was never easy to just be in your life, if that makes sense. You leave those who were choosing easy to leave. So what happens if you don't see this? There's a cost to just continuing to maintain this even after the shift has happened. All right, if you keep telling yourself the friendship changed because of the event, you, my friend, are doing yourself a dishonor, a disservice, and you're lying to yourself. If you keep telling yourself it happened because of the argument, because of the post, because of the vote, because of the comment, because of one bad conversation, you are not living in integrity with yourself around your relationships. And it will have you waiting for an apology that will never ever fix it, even if it comes, because that's not what really happened. And you'll just keep replaying the conversation, replaying the incident, thinking about it, ruminating about it, just keeping that loop going on. What happened? What happened? Why did it happen? You'll be looking for a reason in that sentence, that whatever it is. Like, imagine if I just kept staring at the case for the glasses and like, what happened? Why did she do that? It's just a case. I give her back, because that's not what it was about. So it's important that when these things happen, you see them for what they are. See them for the truth. Stop trying to still explain it away or create something that was never there. You will always be reaching for something different. You'll continue to fake the friendship. You'll continue to keep it going, try to make it the way it was before, instead of really seeing it for what it is and setting yourself free. And that doesn't even mean that you eliminate them. If they're still around, maybe you just shift the type of relationship. If they've left, oh well, you adjust and you move on. This is the part that really matters most. Because if you're in midlife and you're doing this work of curating or planning your next half, it's important for you to acknowledge it. It's important because friendships will become even more important in your life, and you want them to be friendships that are aligned, friendships that bring value, friendships that make you happy, friendships that are good, true friendships, instead of just continuing with the exact same pattern and taking it into the next one, because you can. A way of shifting is just to go to the next friend and take it in there. If you haven't had the wherewithal, if you haven't opened up yourself to see what has happened as what has happened and not what you wanted it to happen, you basically just refuse to look at it and let it inform you. It's really just information at the end of the day. I've watched women spend years defending friendships that already showed them who the people they thought they were in friendship with are. Maya Angelou will never steer you wrong. When people show you who they are, believe them. Believe them the first time. Don't be a second time believer, a third time believer, or a never believer, just stuck in that story or narrative that is not real. It's information. It might be hurtful. It might be hard to accept, but it's not about you, and it never was. Take it as information. It's over. There's also this thing where some people are in your life for a season, for a reason, and for, I don't know what the third one is, but that's all it is. Let them go. Season's over. The reason's done, or whatever the third one is. Move on, right? Treat it like information, because that's really what it is. It's showing you something about who that person was that you didn't know. It's even sometimes showing you who you were. It's data. Like, it can essentially help you to become a better version, for want of a better way of saying it, of yourself. Like, if you didn't like the way it ended, look at how you were showing up. Look at what the shift exposed about you. And if you didn't like it, this is your chance to change. This is your chance to improve. This is your chance to look within and let go of those habits, that way of showing up that didn't work for you. Okay? The only real question you should be asking is not how did this happen or what is really happening, because you already know, you just don't want to accept it. Is whether you're actually willing to see it for what it is and accept it, most importantly, for what it is. So this reflex is one that I work on with my clients. The instinct to explain away something because you don't want to acknowledge or accept it as what it is, you know. So instead of you to just be an observer of what it is, not make you feel bad or good or interpret it in any way, shape, or form, just observe it, you start explaining. We work on this, you know, my clients and I, because many of us have that urge to try to fix it and smooth it over and make it better, or even pretend worse still that nothing really happened and just say, oh, it's because of this, you know. It's not. It's not. It's one of those three things, or even in some instances a combination of them, you know. So it's the same reflex that has you saying yes when you don't want to say yes, agreeing to things you don't want to agree, being in connections or networks or relationships that you don't want to be, or that you've outgrown, or that are not aligned, or that were never even aligned, staying in jobs, in careers that have expired, so to speak. You know, it's that pattern that causes these things to happen. So I have a video called What's Happening in Your Body Before the Yes, and I would love for you to watch it. It explains what's really going on, and most importantly, it helps you, gives you 3 simple tools that you can put into practice, or 3 practices that you can embody to help with this, at least at the surface level, you know. The link is in the description, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao.